We go from John's fascinating work looking forward 30 years. A documentary film is a long form storytelling, to someone who looks at the day, at the moment, but is also looking at that in a bigger way. He's seen it all. He's been all over the world. He's probably the most famous weathercaster in America. He now heads NBC's climate unit. I am sure you have seen him in many ways over the years, and it's Al Roker. Al Roker is known for his passion for this story. And he wants to be sure that it is told to and about everyone, especially underserved communities and people of color. Al is a personality, as you know. He's got an incredible platform. Every day on the Today Show, of which he's a host, he speaks to millions of people. So I had an opportunity to talk to him. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about what his parent company, Comcast NBC Universal, is doing with Planet Forward and making available to our students and some of you. Incredible opportunity. But for now, let's watch the one, the only, Al Roker.
Hey, Al, thanks for joining us.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Frank.
Al, what are some of the most interesting and important climate stories you've done?
You know, we went to Greenland and saw firsthand. We went to Alaska as well, northern Alaska, and we saw firsthand what climate is doing. We were out with the NYU climate researchers and saw what was happening with the glaciers there. We were watching glaciers cleave and calve. In Alaska, we were watching the first climate refugees, if you will, native people whose homes and livelihoods have been affected, because of climate change. That, the warming atmosphere and the warming oceans affecting not only the permafrost where their homes are, but the native species of whales that were being overrun by other species because of the warming ocean. So those two are probably the most recent that, you saw the human toll that this is taking on people.
A huge factor in sea level rise is happening right here in Greenland.
Greenland has enough ice to raise sea levels globally by 25 feet.
With temperatures rising,
hundreds of millions of people around the world would be affected.
Cities are at risk.
How do you turn these into stories, Al? Into stories that resonate with people who've never been to Greenland, who don't think about ice on a daily basis? I mean, that's your job, right? Make it interesting. Make it something that people can relate to. How do you do that?
Well, the good news is I am, in a sense, just the tip of the spear. We have at NBC News, we have our climate unit, and we have a great group of producers and videographers and researchers who are looking at these stories and saying, okay, if X, then Y. If we see this happening, our job is to be able to tell folks, okay, yes, there's sea level rise, but here's why. If you don't even live next to a coastline, here's why you have to be concerned about it. That is our day-to-day job.
Right now,
this should be one of the best summers of their lives.
everyday life is already changing,
We are trying to make the world aware of this.
and livelihoods are already being threatened.
We probably lost something in the order of about 500 customers this summer.
Hey, Al, you've said, and these are your words because I read them, climate change affects everybody. It doesn't care if you're black or white, rich or poor, male or female. Climate change affects everybody. How do we bring more of those diverse voices and make that point more clearly in the storytelling and the reporting that we do and the issues around them?
While that statement I said is true, what is also true is that people of color, populations of color, are usually more directly affected by climate change, whether it's because of water quality, air quality. These are issues that are, issues of equality. because if you have greater means, you can sort of ameliorate those effects of climate change. We have to make these stories relatable to everybody, because it's not just an issue of climate, it's an issue of human rights as well.
What are the stories, and thinking too about the kind of environmental equity issues that you just made reference to, that you most want to tell, or that you most think that people need to understand better?
To me, I just feel like we have to stress the urgency of this issue, because, I think as we get further out on this timeline, we're going to be seeing harsher and harsher results, and they're going to be happening much more quickly.
You've been weather forecasting for a long time.
Well, with temperatures heading up into the upper 90s over the next couple of days, looks like the Big Apple's going to become the baked apple. With the temperatures falling as fast as the leaves, looks like we're going to have to issue a tweed alert. Unless you really bundle up out there tomorrow morning, you are going to know what it feels like to be a piece of frozen spinach in your freezer. If you're coming into town today, don't forget to bring your city.
The best dressed people in New York get their weather from Al Roker.
And one of the things we hear when we talk to people, whether it's farmers who talk about the way the rains come, or people who live in coastal areas or subject to hurricane, that they say what they've seen is that the weather has changed. Have you seen the weather change in your career?
It's the same weather. But it is happening. The extremes are happening more frequently. We're seeing warmer summers. We're seeing colder winters, or in certain places, winters that are not as cold. And so we're seeing species of plants invading areas that they normally would not survive. Longer hurricane seasons, fire seasons that aren't seasons anymore, but are just year round. We're getting the same weather, but we're getting more extremes of it.
Let me ask you this as a storyteller. This is very interesting to think about. And I talk to students a lot, and I say, when you go into a story, certainly when I've gone into stories in the past, I think about what I want to hand to the audience, right? What do I want the audience to take away? When you are doing your stories on climate change, what do you want to do and to give to your audience? Are you trying to inform them or persuade them or prompt action or say, hey, like you said, it's urgent? How do you approach this?
Look, I'm married to Deborah Roberts, who's a correspondent on 2020 and ABC News. She's the senior national affairs correspondent. She is, you were, a big, what I would call a big J journalist. I don't necessarily consider myself that, but what I do consider is that we're supposed to be giving people facts. And the idea is to give folks the information that they can use to make a decision, to take some sort of action.
It's the perfect place to talk about small steps we can all take to protect our planet as we face a climate in crisis.
What is your advice to people from whatever walk of life they may come from, who want to be better communicators with respect to climate?
Look, there are people who are persuadable and people who are not. There are those who I think fall into three categories. There are those who already feel the way you do. There are those who are on the fence about the way you feel. And there are those that no matter what you do, until something affects them personally, that you're probably not going to change their mind. So I think by being reasonable and not getting personal, and just presenting your story and sticking with facts without being personally negative, I think ends up winning the day.
You've been all over the world and done all these different stories. If you could take someone who's not quite sure about climate and bring them on an airplane or a boat or something with you and take them and show them something and take them to the story right in the front row, where would you take them?
In this country, I'd take them to Miami so that they can see rainy day flooding, I should say sunny day flooding on a regular basis. I would take them to places along the southeastern Atlantic coast where roads flood on a high tide and a stiff wind, where there are no storms coming. You know, I would take them to places where we see wind farms and good, cheap, you know, wind power generating clean energy, and how these are jobs of the future that can sustain us and make us energy independent. You know, I prefer to try to show people the positives than they still need to see the negatives, but the positives, I think, are at the end of the day what will help people come over to this side.
How do we make the connection between weather and climate? Do weather forecasters get in trouble sometimes when they talk in climate? Because I've heard from some in some communities, and they've said flat out, my audience doesn't want to hear me talk. They want the weather. They don't want to hear me talk preaching about the climate.
Well, I think the operative word is preaching, Frank. I don't think it's our job to preach. I think it's our job to present facts, much like you would with the forecast.
What should we be watching for in the Al Roker department?
Well, you know, we're going to be covering Earth Week, like a lot of folks will be, and in that we are going to be presenting stories that show why this affects your everyday life, whether it's your environment, your neighborhood, your bank account, all these things that are tied to climate, and why not only is it important for us, but in a sense, more importantly, for this next generation. And what's interesting is how engaged this next generation is. I mean, Greta Thunberg is just the tip of the iceberg, no pun intended. You know, there is a groundswell of young people who are not going to accept the status quo when it comes to climate.
Advice for them?
Keep fighting.
Hey, Al, thanks so much. You have had such a fantastic career, and your voice and your platform with climate change and the conversations that we're having here are so important to you know, keeping everybody on focus. So, you know, good luck and safe travels, and thank you again.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody watching.
And a very sincere thanks to Al and to all the folks at Comcast Universal who helped make that conversation possible. He's a very busy guy, as you imagine. He's working on more climate projects now. And I think the thing that comes through most powerfully from him is that what he tries to do is he connects climate to his audience, is explain, make it real, make it relevant, bring it into people's lives, and to use trusted sources who are close to the story. And that's, I think, a good lesson for anybody in any walk of life who's trying to communicate this. Now, I mentioned going in, Al, who works for Comcast, NBC Universal, the company is working with us, and I'm just delighted to tell you that Comcast Universal is supporting the Planet Forward Comcast Sustainability Storytelling Fellowship here with us. They are supporting us and our work with students to do advanced storytelling around issues relating to sustainability and the planet, and that can move the planet forward. I'd like to invite up our first Planet Forward Comcast Sustainability Storytelling Fellow, Francesca Edralin. It is wonderful to see you sitting in front of the world as you are. Francesca is a current Planet Forward correspondent, everybody. She's a two-time StoryFest finalist. She's a prolific contributor to Planet Forward. She's a junior at the George Washington University. She's pursuing her BA in International Affairs with minors in journalism, mass communication, and sustainability. She's also been featured on our project, the Planet Forward project that we do with WNET Public Broadcasting, which is Planet Forward on Peril and Promise. So, Francesca, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, Frank. This is an honor to be here, and it's also an honor to be following Al Roker. All of his words really resonated with me.
Well, you know, maybe you'll be vying for his job one of these days. We'll see you up there. Francesca, you did a really interesting story, and we're going to roll in a clip in just a second here, but briefly, what's it about?
So pretty much I follow the work of the Green Bronx Machine, which is an organization founded in the Bronx, New York, that seeks to combat food insecurity and also keep students more engaged in schools and eat healthier through the art of classroom gardening. And so I found out about this organization by just running into the founder of the organization at a summit, and this was in 2017. So 4 years later, I decided to track him down, and I wanted to ask him how his organization has been combating food insecurity, especially during the pandemic and especially with schools shutting down. And I got some really interesting answers that will be showcased in this film.
Well, we're going to take a look at that in just a second. I just want to point out to everybody as we get to start to watch it that we've been working with you over time on this and are really pleased with how it's turned out. But an interesting point is you're a character in your own film. We're actually following your own sort of journey of questioning and discovery.
Yes, exactly. When trying to find who would be the best character to highlight in this film, I realized that the best character I actually had a personal connection to. And so I want others to be just as impacted by the work of Green Bronx Machine as I have had, because I just happened to run into the organization and their mission really resonated with me, and I hope it resonates with the rest of the audience.
All right, well, we're going to take a look at it now. It's about 2 minutes that we're going to share with everybody, and then we'll come back and chat with you. And then I'm going to actually announce some opportunities with Comcast, NBC Universal, and others for next year. But let's take a look at your project here, Francesca, and then you and I will chat afterwards. Here it is.
The pandemic has revealed terrible inequities in society. And here's one that particularly shocked me. 11 million children in the U.S. currently live in food insecure homes, according to the USDA. That's 11 million children. Coming from the Philippines, where child hunger is on the rise, I've seen how serious of an issue this is. It's a problem made worse due to the pandemic, as parents lose jobs and schools shut down. So I wondered, what could be done about this? Where are their answers? Could local food production, perhaps in the form of community gardens, help address these inequalities? And as I dug, I had a light bulb moment. I thought of the perfect person to reach out to for answers.
Get out there and make epic happen.
I'd met Stephen Ritz in 2017 when I was in Milan, Italy. I was a student presenter at the Education First Global Leadership Summit, which was all about sustainable food. Stephen was there as founder of the Green Bronx Machine. The Green Bronx Machine addresses food insecurity by teaching students how to grow their own food and eat healthier, all through the form of classroom gardening. The Bronx is where Stephen comes from, and as the name suggests, is also where the Green Bronx Machine was founded. 4 years later, and I finally tracked Stephen down.
Hey Stephen, it's been so long. How are you?
Oh, Francesca, so good to see you.
I won't forget when we crossed paths right here. We took this photo with your cheese hat that you're still wearing right now.
Absolutely. The cheese hat doesn't go anywhere but stays on my head. You know, for me, it's all about education, not asphyxiation.
I wanted to know what he's been up to.
Could you tell me a little more on what Green Bronx Machine has been doing, how they've been navigating education and classroom gardening in this new world?
What have we done? Well, we've delivered this humble little organization, which puts school at the center of our community, putting unity back into the community, has delivered over 100,000 pounds of food directly to local residents. We turned our school into a supermarket and literally put bags and bags of groceries outside of the school for grab and grow. We brought communities together to grow more than 5,000 pounds of food outdoors in local gardens, you know, bringing people of different faiths, races, and religion together to grow something greater, along with, you know, socially distant activities, which got people outside and into the fresh air.
Well, let me invite Francesca. Come on back. There you are. Outside and into the fresh air. Oh, boy, we're all looking for that. He's amazing. This guy's amazing.
Yeah, yes, exactly. When I encountered him at the summit 4 years ago, he was by far probably the most passionate person I've ever met. And just the way he speaks, and he just, you know, it's this charisma and just his work and his mission just because how passionate he is. As an educator too, it's really powerful.
And he's made a difference. Now you have other characters in your story, and people will be able to see your entire story, the whole video at planetforward.org. But very quickly, who are a couple of the other people you've got in the story?
Yes, so I also interview Stephen's daughter, Michaela, who is an educator and a volunteer with Green Bronx Machine. And so I got to interview her and also one of the classes that she's been teaching. And so I got to meet them and hear how they've been able to do socially distanced learning in the classroom during the pandemic. And it seems like they're doing some really great stuff and that the students are keeping engaged.
And you talked to one of his former students who's now gone into doing this as part of his calling in life.
Yes, full time. I spoke to a guy named Corey, who was actually Stephen's student when he was in 6th grade. Stephen actually came up with the idea to start, gardening in the classroom, to start building local community gardens in the Bronx. And so it was funny. Corey was telling me, yeah, when Stephen first brought up the idea, I thought he was crazy. I thought he was just joking. And then, I ended up gardening with him, and he was saying how now he does it for a living full time. And now Stephen's like a second dad to him. So it really shows how powerful the Green Bronx Machine mission is and really empowering young people.
Well, Francesca, I just want to say there are several things that you were able to do in this piece, and it's worth pointing out. First of all, this is your journey. You raise a question at the beginning, you explore it, examine it, and then you answer it at the end. Where is this all going? You introduce us to a very diverse set of characters in a very important place on a very important topic, which is food, activity, growing food, healthful food, accessible food, as you raise a question about so many millions of people in this country who are food insecure. And you bring us to us in a very engaging way. You brought great characters yourself. You're a great character. So terrific work. Thank you very much. And we'll tell everybody to go see it at planetforward.org in its entirety. It'll be up there in just a short bit. I think you're still doing a little sound sweetening or something, but it'll be there soon enough. Thanks, Francesca.
Yes, thank you so much, Frank. This opportunity has been amazing.
Well, we're very proud of what you've done, and we look forward to a lot more from you. I should tell you, everybody, now that we're very excited that this partnership with Comcast, NBC Universal, Francesca is the first student who's done this, but it is going to continue into next year in 2022. And in fact, the fellowship will grow. We will have several opportunities for fellowship awards for top-tier student storytellers. They'll be able to cover sustainability stories and work with us, work with our brilliant managing editor, Kim Ossie, and with the rest of the team. Will help support and elevate your story and your emerging journalism. So keep an eye out on the planetforward.org. We'll post information on that. But I want to thank Comcast, NBC Universal very, very much from the bottom of our hearts, because what you're providing here is an absolutely phenomenal opportunity for students. And we will share their work, the next batch of Planet Forward Comcast storytelling fellows at next year's summit. Now, we will have some other opportunities here, and I want to share those with you too. And you'll be able to apply for this fellowship, the Comcast Fellowship, and others at editor@planetforward.org. To express your interest, we'll put some information up in the screen as we go here. But a couple of other opportunities with partners. We work with the UNFAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, astonishing organization dedicated to dealing with food insecurity and hunger around the planet. And in the past, we've taken students with UNFAO to Rome to attend World Food Security Conference and do stories from there. Well, we're now establishing a UNFAO summer fellowship opportunity for you. And the Planet Forward FAO Storytelling Summer Fellows will produce stories on food security, agriculture, nutrition. It's a tremendous journalism opportunity and storytelling opportunity for Planet Forward students to cover stories at the nexus of hunger, nutrition, and food access in America. It's this summer. Again, keep an eye at planetforward.org for more information. We'll have that for you, but that's going to be another amazing opportunity for you. And thanks again to UNFAO for that. We're also offering very exciting internships. Climate and Capital Media internships. This is a new one of our family members here, Climate and Capital Media, which explores and explains the business of climate, is offering internships in research, reporting, and writing. There'll be a focus on business and finance behind climate action, so you'll learn about climate change and solutions and all the rest through this internship. They're looking for students and recent graduates with an active interest in journalism and or climate action. So keep eyes peeled for that too. There's more information there. And finally, then this one is for our GW students, the home team, I'll call them. Sorry for the rest of you, but the School of Media and Public Affairs will be making funding available for to support student internships at news organizations, environmental news organizations this summer as well. If you're interested there, you can contact Lisa at planetforward.org, or also keep your eyes peeled on the Planet Forward pages. We'll be getting all of that. See the chat for more information. We posted a student interest form there for more information on the ability for you to apply to any of these opportunities.